Greetings, Crusaders. Yeah, it's been a while. I'd been planning to record, videos a little more. Unfortunately, I got sick. I was coughing my lungs out. I, couldn't get a recording in without doing so. Everything was turning out like crap. So I just put aside making more videos for a bit. And I apologize for that. In fact, I'm still coughing a little bit. If I do in the middle of this rant, I do apologize. But it's a rant I've been meaning to rant about for a while now, at least a week, maybe a little more. So yeah, Games Workshop. What is wrong with you? What is actually wrong with you? We're in this. Okay, so how do we get here? Let's go over that first. How do we get here? So now a lot of y'all are here on this channel because I broke some news, a little bit of news about a certain book saying a certain statement, that in the generic sense of a Adeptus Custodes, that they are a him or a his. They are male only. This is the excerpt from the Ultimate Guide that everyone is used to by this point, okay? Now, despite the words of Black Library authors, as far as it's concerned, this is a canon publication. That's where canon is made. Canon is made on publication, not the opinions of authors on social media in publication. This is like creative writing 101. But of course, everyone was like, oh, the custodes aren't retconned. It was old content, blah, blah, blah. And, grifters jumped on that and, of course, said that, oh, they're not decanonized. They're still around. Well, I will again point out, this is canon. These two words at the current juncture are canon. That's just how it works. Now, of course, Games Workshop is, deathly afraid of pleasing its fans. So, of course, on Instagram, they put out this a little while back. This was about a week ago at this point that referring to Adeptus Custodes as every man and woman. And of course, this is Games Workshop's, social media team. These people do not have access to, or that's not so much they don't have access, so much they do not have the ability to dictate canon. So it really is irrelevant. But you know what? That's not the problem. The canonicity of female custodes is not the problem here. It's not. And I think we're at a point now where people aren't talking about the problem. The problem isn't whether they exist or not, whether they're canon or not. I mean, even the fact that Games Workshop cannot rectify whether they can be canon in any way, shape, or form in the setting is largely irrelevant. It's the fact that Games Workshop can't seem to, in any way that matters, convey whether they exist. They are at war with themselves on the topic. They want to, on the one hand, they apparently want to say, yes, they are real, they are canon. On the other hand, they do not want to commit to the idea that they are canon. They won't give them models. They won't give them art. Like the only, art, heavy air quotes, is, from the tithes. The screen cap, slightly edited in front of you. A show no one watched. So Games Workshop has this commitment issue with female custodes, with this change that they apparently want to have, but don't want to stick with. A commitment issue that, if you ask me, was behind the use of male-only pronouns in the Ultimate Guide. They don't really want to fully commit. Now, I know, Guy Haley and Gav Thorpe have spoken up saying, oh, well, we didn't have all the info. It's like, no, I'm sorry. That's a cope. This book went to the publisher with full knowledge of what had come by the point they were ready to hit publish. They knew female custodes were canon and did nothing to change this. That's the simple fact of it. That's what happened. So this ultimately says one of two things about Games Workshop as a company. One, Games Workshop is either unwilling to fully commit to the idea of female custodes. They want to test the waters of a DEI inclusion, but they don't want to fully commit because in that case, they could easily pull out. Which is why the only real, affirmation of their canonicity has been social media. Something that can be completely disregarded or even deleted if they need to. Now, there's another possibility. And that's the one that I believe is the true one, because the answer, when it's one of the potential outcomes, is always incompetence. And that second possibility is Games Workshop is at war internally over what to do. As in, there are multiple groups within the company trying to decide where to go forward with the IPs and how to present them to the customers in order to make money. Now, this goes well beyond female custodes. This really does. Let's track back to earlier in the year, about middle of the year, when Imperial Agents came out. Remember, this was the book that took an entire Space Marine faction and destroyed it. It took the Deathwatch, a faction that was popular enough to get pushback, to get a re-release in December, an official reintroduction to tabletop as an independent faction. They took this faction and they destroyed it. They did not want it to be an independent faction anymore for some reason, despite all evidence to the contrary. But somebody at Games Workshop was willing to push for their reintroduction when there was enough complaining. Somebody fought for the Deathwatch. They fought for their re-inclusion. They fought for them to be part of 40K tabletop again in the way they're meant to be, as their own Space Marine faction. So, again, one party wanted Deathwatch gone. They wanted them to be stripped down to borderline useless, battle line units and a Codex that wasn't even theirs, while the other clearly wants them to be their own independent faction. Now, and once again, Death Corps of Krieg. Somebody at Games Workshop fought for this faction to be included as, a full sub-faction of the Imperial Guard, going with the Guard, the same route Space Marines go, the route they should go, where the Imperial Guard faction has its own sub-armies that you can include and play as, much like, say, Imperial Fists, Black Templars, Ultramarines, what have you. Those famous canon sub-factions that everybody wants to have, the ones Games Workshop used to have for Guard years ago, back when I first started. Steel Legion, Vostroyans, Valhallans, what are they called? Mordians, all of these. People want these back. And it's clear somebody at Games Workshop convinced them to put in the effort to create brand new plastic molds for Death Corps of Krieg. And so what does Games Workshop do? Next, they cut most of the possible Krieg units out, and then basically reduce you to only using Death Corps of Krieg specific infantry units, except for the vehicles in the Imperial Guard. It's a very, the Guard Codex is awful. It's a very hackneyed system where, rather than, committing to sub-factions, they kind of decide to half commit, where the only real sub-factions are the specific infantry models. Some of which, Rip Iron Hand Strachan and Sergeant Harker, they basically cut out all their special characters. there's only 3 of them. And there's no generic option anymore. So you're flip-flopping between, you know, specifically tagged guard infantry and generic vehicles. And it's like, it's like they tried to go halvesies on it. They tried to go halvesies and not commit. And it just hurt the guard codex. And we're not even going to go into the fucking $230 launch box for Krieg with just barely over 300 points worth of models. Okay, we're not going to go into that. That's a fucking travesty in its own right. But let's oh, and don't think for a minute that that Warhammer's fantasy side has been spared. I mean, look, we saw it in the financial reports. 4th edition Age of Sigmar flopped. It was another flop. But somebody decided to take the Beastmen faction, Beastmen of Chaos from Age of Sigmar, and in a complete middle finger to the idea they might have been stuck in Age of Sigmar because Games Workshop is now, if it's a faction in one game, it can't be a faction in both. They decide to, you know what? We're stealing the Beastmen from Age of Sigmar. Fuck you. We're putting them in Old World now. And now Beastmen are in Old World, and the entire plot line building up Beastmen in Age of Sigmar, completely removed. Completely gone. It's very clear that, whoever was behind this likes Beastmen and wanted to rescue them from the inferior game. The game that is selling poorly. Because it's like right now, apparently, per the financial reports, the game at Games Workshop that's doing the best, or the games that are doing the best, are basically, $40K, but it's being edged out slowly by Horus Heresy and Old World. And as it currently stands, Age of Sigmar isn't even on the radar. Like, it is so behind the other 3 that it's like kind of sad. And it's very clear that the center of this sort of civil war, the side that actually wants Warhammer to succeed, apologies, that's the sickness kicking in again. The part that wants Warhammer to succeed are the ones working on Heresy and the Old World. They're the ones putting in the effort to make, fun mechanics and good game systems. And 10th edition is kind of limping along on brand recognition and the success the success of the COVID era boom that is rapidly dying, as Games Workshop isn't losing money, but their profits are down. It is a noticeable downward trend. And these controversies, female custodes, Deathwatch, the Guard Codex, it's all building up. It's what's causing this. And I mean, let's be real here. If we're being real with ourselves, like these are the current previews for, these are the current previews that we've seen before from LVO at the recent reveals. They revealed Emperor's Children, and the reaction from everyone was a collective meh. And this was after the unbridled hype of revealing, the Death Corps of Krieg and the new Eldar. So Games Workshop just took all that energy and ripped it away in a matter of like days with, piss poor reveals and management of the Imperial Guard by itself. We can only hope that the Eldar somehow managed to not trip and fall on their face. I have not read the previews for Eldar yet, but hopes aren't high. And now we have a brand new faction coming out, Emperor's Children, and they're pumping out the other 3 Chaos Legions on top of that. And as I said, the hype isn't there. Games Workshop, you are killing this game right now because you can't decide what to do. You can't decide who to commit to, who to listen to, and you're making bad decisions. This goes beyond DEI bullshit. This goes into you killing your drive, killing your forward momentum from those COVID years where you got everybody on board with, you know, with Warhammer as a hobby. You need to keep the momentum up, and you're not doing it. And I mean, listen, I don't know how to tell you this, Games Workshop, because this is the sad truth, and you need to listen to it. The times are changing. The culture is a shifting. You can't keep doing this to yourself, especially when it comes to this commitment to your own lore that custodes can only, whether they can be women or not. I mean, because they can. You haven't actually added the canon as to why they suddenly can be. You've just insisted on it. And insisting on a retcon does not make it exist. That's the simple fact. And believe me, when I say Games Workshop, you are in trouble if you do not change your ways. Not only in terms of lore, but money, how much you charge people. You are in trouble. You need to get your shit together, because there are things in the pipeline you are not ready to deal with. There is competition you are not ready to fight. It is coming, and you cannot stop it. And that is the simple fact. Games Workshop, as a fan, as a 26-year fan, and, you know, customer and person who has backed you when others wouldn't have, I just have this to say to you. Get your shit together, because you cannot sustain this. You cannot keep this up. You are at war with yourself. You need to pick a side and choose whether you're going to succeed and move into the future as a successful multimedia franchise that could be on par with how Star Wars used to be, or you can fade into obscurity once again for another decade as others come to take your place. That is your choice. It's time you choose. But you know what? As a fan, I will not tacitly advertise you with my, with my streaming character anymore. That is why I look like the way I do today in this video, in my streams. And that's how it's going to be going forward. And you know what? I'm not the only customer making such decisions. There's others making harsher decisions for you, whether they're going to keep supporting you or not. And it's not in your favor. So I will say it again, Games Workshop, get your shit together. Well, this has been Marshall Bohemond with a rant for you guys. I hope you all have a good day and a good evening, wherever you are watching this. I will catch y'all later, and take care, everyone.